Hello friends, in last lecture we learned about Satavahana dynasty. In this lecture we will learn about post-Satavahana period. In the left figure you will find the political structure in Deccan region after the decline of Satavahana. And in the right figure you will find how the political structure evolved over the time. So in the right figure, you will find the northern region was ruled by Gupta Empire with capital at Patliputra, and in Deccan region, the Vakataka ruler or Vakataka dynasty captured the territory of Ichwaku and Avira kingdom. So they expand their kingdom, and the Vakataka start ruling for Vatsa Gulma. Ichwaku they ruled from Vijaypuri or Nagarjunkonda. In in northern Karnataka region, Chuttu were replaced by Kadamba dynasty, and Kadamba ruled from capital at Banavasi, same as Chuttu dynasty. And then we find Pallav dynasty who used to rule from capital at Kanchipuram. And when the Pallav dynasty weakened, then a new dynasty emerged from Pallav dynasty, and that dynasty was Western Ganga dynasty. The Western Ganga dynasty ruled from capital at Kollar or Talakkadu. In deep south, the territory was ruled by a tribe known as Kalabharas. Kalabhara, and they ruled from Kaveri Patnam or from Madurai. And they captured the territory of Cholchera and Pandya kingdom. Kalabharas. They ruled from 3rd century AD to 6th century AD. And this time period is known as dark history of South India because no development happened during this time period, and lot of atrocities against Brahman happened during Kalabhara's reign. Uh, as as in last lecture, we discussed that Satavahana dynasty ruled the Deccan region, and the Deccan region and South Indian region was mainly dominated by tribal people. So, um, tribal people and for urbanization, Satavahana used land grant to Brahman and Buddhist. So in South India, the same thing was happening. Uh, in South India, Chol Chera and Pandya kingdom. Uh, that area was also dominated by tribal people, and Kalabharas were tribal people of hilly region in Cholchera and Pandya kingdom, and they mainly involved in agriculture activities. The land grant to Brahman, also known as Agrahara or Agraharam, uh, and Buddhist, started by Satavahana ruler in Deccan, uh, penetrates the deep south region of Cholchera and Pandya Empire. The Cholchera and Pandya king start donating or start granting land to Brahman. The big land grants by the southern kingdom led to deprivation of land resource by tribal people, especially Kalabhars. The deprivation of land resource and mistreatment by Brahmins led to the Kalabhara revolt. They not only attacked Brahman but also enslaved rulers of Cholchera and Pandya. They established their rule and ruled the southern territory for 3 centuries, from 3rd century AD to 6th century AD, with the capital at Kaveri Patnam. On one hand, they executed Brahmins, and on another hand, they accepted Buddhism and Jainism. In the history, they were described as evil people because they executed many Brahmins. In 6th century AD, Kalabhara dynasty came to an end after the combined attack of Chalukya, Pallava, and Pandya. And at that time, Pallava was ruled by Simha Vishnu. Agrahara or Agraharam. We found earliest reference of Agrahara in Sangam age literature. And Agrahara was tax-free land granted to Brahman. And in that land, sometime it evolved into learning center of Vedic studies. So Agrahara is also associated with learning center of Vedic studies. Next is Kadamba dynasty. The Kadamba dynasty was founded by Mayur Sarman, and the Telagunda inscription at Simoga district describe Mayur Sarman as the founder of Kadamba dynasty. It was issued by King Santivarman, and it is written in Sanskrit language Kannada script. It described the Kadamba dynasty as Brahman dynasty. Originally, they were tribal people, as the region was dominated by tribes, but uh, they declared themselves as Brahman in Telagunda inscription. So it was like Satvana effect, like Satvana king declared themselves as Brahman. Originally, Satvana was also tribal people, but they declared themselves as Brahman. The same, the same thing was with Kadamba dynasty. They were tribal people, but in Telagunda inscription, they declared themselves as Brahman dynasty. The religion, they used to follow Hinduism, but Buddhism and Jainism also flourished because the area was tribal in nature, and the land grant to Hinduism and Buddhism is leading to urbanization of the region. So they used to donate land to Brahman, Buddhism, and Jain also. Ghatka is a learning center associated with Hindu temples and mutts. Now, Mayur Sarman studied Vedic literature and Kanchi Ghatika. Kanchi was the capital of Pallava. In last slide, I discussed the term Agrahara. Agrahara was land tax-free land granted to Brahmins, and it was large area, till the temple plus whole of the village. But in Ghatika is a small area that is a learning center associated with Hindu temples and mutts. So it is the area where school size area. Ghatka is school size area. The Kadamba dynasty succeeded Chuttu dynasty and ruled from the capital at Banavasi. Kadamba shared boundary with Pallava and Western Ganga dynasty. Kadamba dynasty was the first dynasty to use Kannada language in their administration. The term Kuri, Kuripatti is known as uh, the term Kuripatti is used for shepherd settlement, Turpatti for cowherd settlement, and Palli for small hamlets. Uh, as the region was dominated by tribal people, so the uh, and they used to practice cow rearing, and cow raid was common during the reign of Kadamba dynasty, and it was same like what was happening in Rigvedi age and in the North India. So, so they used to fight fire cow. Kalidas visited the court of Kadamba for the marriage alliance of Chandragupta II. Uh, The most important ruler of this dynasty was Kakustha Varman. He ruled from 435 AD to 455 AD, and he he made marriage alliance with many dynasty, including Gupta dynasty and Western Ganga dynasty. After the death of Kakustha Varman, the dynasty split into two branches. Halmidi inscription. Uh, it was dated around 450 to 580, and it is at Hassan district near Bellur, and it is the oldest Kannada language inscription written in Kannada script, and it was issued by Kadamba dynasty. In 540 AD, they become vassal of Chalukya of Badami and later disintegrated into smaller branches. We found a temple with Kadamba Sikhar. The characteristic of Kadamba Sikhar is pyramid with climbing steps architecture with colors at top. Climbing steps is like what you use in uh, what we found in staircase. Madhukeshwara temple at Banwasi. It was temple dedicated to Lord Shiva and the current structure was built at 9th century AD. But historians cite the temple was built by Mayur Sarman, the founder of dynasty. But if he built some temple, then it was very probably it will be very small. And the current structure of the Mayur Sarma temple was built at 9th century AD. The administration of Kadamba dynasty, the king was known as Dharma Maharajas and he was assisted by council of minister and private secretary. The private secretary was known as Rahasya Adhipritha. Prime Minister was known as Pradhan, Chief Secretary was known as Sarv Karyakarta, Council Secretary was known as Tantrapala or Sabhakarya Sachiv. Chief Justice was known as Dharmadhyaksh. Physician was known as Des, Desamatya. Scholarly elders were known as Vidya Vriddhas. Steward, Stew- Steward of household were known as Mane Vergada. Army officers were Jagdala, Dandanayaka and Senapati. The territorial division of Kadamba dynasty was Mandal or Desa. It was province level territory, then Visay, then Taluka, and then Gram. District and village level officers are Ayukta and Bhojak. Tax during Kadamba dynasty, the land tax was known as Kirukula, and additional levy on land was known as Perjun Perjunka. Social security tax was Badara and sales tax was Bilkoda. Betel tax was Beetle tax was Pannaya, and the present to king was known as Utkota. Now, Western Ganga dynasty. They ruled from 350 AD to 1000 AD. They stabilized their kingdom after the weakening of Pallava dynasty when the Samud group attacked southern region. The founder of the Western Ganga dynasty was Pongani Varma Madhava. Uh, he ruled from capital at Kollar. The later capital of Western Ganga dynasty was Talakad. The language of the Western Ganga dynasty was Kannada and Sanskrit. Religion followed by Western Ganga dynasty was Jainism and Hinduism. We found Gomateswara or Bahubali statue which was built around 981 AD at Shravanbelgola. It was the second tallest Jain statue after Lord Rishabdev statue at Mangitungi Hill in Maharashtra. Virakkal, there was Virakkal practice erecting hero stones for uh, sol- for brave soldiers, and it was known as Virkal. And there is another term that is Mahasatikals or Mastikal. It was hero stone for women. The woman who sacrificed for their husband or the woman who used to do sati practice, who perform sati practice. From 350 to 550 AD, it was an independent kingdom, and after 550 to 750 AD, they become vassal of Chalukya of Badami, and they remain independent for one century, around 100 year. But after 100 year, from 850 to 1080, they become vassal of Rajput dynasty. And in 1000 AD, the Western Ganga dynasty came to an end after the attack of Chola rulers. After the attack of Chola ruler or Chola dynasty, the administration of Western Ganga dynasty. Velavalli were the royal bodyguards, and uh, there was practice of self-immolation of Velavalli on the funeral of master or king. It was same like sati practice, but in sati the wife of wife of a person used to immolate, but uh, in this Velavalli or royal bodyguard used to self-immolate on the funeral of king. The kingdom was divided into Rashtra, and Rashtra was divided into Visay or Nadu, and Nadu was divided into Desa. The prime minister was known as Sarvadhikari, treasurer was known as Sri Bhandari, foreign minister was known as Sandhi Vigrah, chief minister Mahapradhan. Dandakarya is the title which was used by these high rank officers. Commander of Elephant Army, Gaj Sahani, commander of cavalry, Durga Sahani. The cloth and jewelry was looked after by Mahapas, Mahapasahita, and the royal places were looked by Niyogi. Local level officer, mm, superintendent were known as Piergade. Royal household was looked by Manever Vergade, and toll collector were known as superintendent of toll collection or toll collector was known as Sunka Vergade. Nada Bhovas were the accountant and tax collector at Nadu level or district level. Uh, Nalagamigas were the army officer at Nadu level or district level. Prabhu. Uh, they were officers who used to monitor land grants, and they used to perform the demarcation of land boundaries. And Gavandu were known as landlord. Landlord were known as Gavandu. The term Velavalli was important because it was associated with practice same as sati practice, and land was important resource, and at that time the the region was dominated by tribal people, and king uh, used to issue land grant to Brahman and Buddhism for the urbanization of region. So, Prabhu is important term because they used to monitor the land grants and demarcation of land boundaries. And similarly, Gavandu were the landlords, and they used to rule over the large area. So it was also an important term. Rest, if you can remember, it is okay. If you can't remember, then just go through it once. The economy of Western Ganga dynasty, it was as they were tribal people, so they used to practice mixed farming. In mixed farming, crop and livestock. Agriculture produce were sugarcane, paddy, betel leaves, and coconut. As they were tribal people, like Kadamba dynasty, they also depend on cows, and cow raid was common in Western Ganga dynasty also. So we found a number of terms that is common in Kadamba dynasty and Western Ganga dynasty. That is Gos, Gosa Hasra. Gosa Hasra is used for 1,000 cow. Gosara is used to refer honor of cows. Gosasai, it is for donor of cows. Goiti for cow herders and Gosasa for protector of cows. The tax in Western Ganga dynasty was Siddhaya, it was agriculture tax. Then Potondi, uh, Potondi was merchandise tax. Mannadare, land tax. Purimbadare, separate tax. Bittuatta or Niravari, it was tax for irrigation tank. Land, there are also land exempted from tax, and these land were known as manya. And manya were generally granted to family of heroes who died for kingdom. Talavritti was land granted for maintenance of temple in Western Ganga dynasty. Vakatak dynasty. The founder of the Vakatak dynasty was Vindhyasakti. He ruled from 250 AD to 270 AD, and he ruled from capital at Vasta Gulma. The language of the Vakatak dynasty was Sanskrit and Prakrit. So you, they use Sanskrit language and Prakrit language, same as northern region language. The religion of the Vakata dynasty ruler followed Hinduism, Jainism, and Buddhism religion. Parvarsena I, he succeeded Vindhyasakti and ruled from 270 AD to 330 AD. He adopted the title of Samrat and started territorial expansion by defeating local rulers including Nagas. As per Puran, he had four sons, and after his death, the kingdom was ruled by four branches, and probably these four branches was based on based on the their sons. As in Puran, they he had four sons, and after that death, we found four branches. So probably it was division among the sons. We know about two branches, but we don't have idea about another two branches. The two known branches are Pa- Parvarpura or Nandivardhan branch, and this was Nagpur region area, and the branch name is based on capital from where the branch used to rule. So the first branch is Parvarapura or Nandivardhan branch. It was capital of first branch. The important ruler of this branch was Rudrasen I. He was grandson of Parvara Sena and he was son of Gautami Putra. Second branch is Vastagulma branch. Uh, Vastagulma is Wardha region and it is west of Nagpur. And the ruler of the Vastagulma branch was Sarva Sena. He was the second son of Parvara Sena. Rudra Sen II of Nandivardhan branch got married with Prabhavati Gupta, daughter of Chandragupta II. Parvara Sena II of Nandivardhan branch, he shifted capital from Nandivardhana to Prava Parvarapura. So that's why the branch is known as Parvarapura and Nandivardhan branch because it has two capital. One, the earlier capital was at Nandivardhan, and the second capital or later uh, Vakata kingdom capital was at Parvarapura. The Parvara Sen too composed Setu Bandhana in Maharashtri Prakrit. Hari Sen of Vastagulma branch, he started the second phase of the development of Ajanta Cave. Thus Kumar Charit by Dandin describes the killing of last Vakatak ruler during the fight with Asmaka kingdom. Later, Vakatak territory was annexed by Ravi Verma, a Kadamba ruler or Kadamba king. Although Vakataka ruled over a large territory, but we don't find any coin associated with Vakataka ruler till date. We don't have any coin issued by Vakataka ruler till now. Ajanta Cave. Ajanta Cave is 30 rock-cut Buddhist cave, out of which five uh, were chats, and it was in the valley of river Vagur in Aurangabad district. And because the river valley are generally U-shaped, so it was on the northern edge of Vagur River. The Ajanta cave is on the northern edge of River Valley, and it was developed into two phases. Phase one started from 2nd century BC to 1st century AD, and it was Hinian phase. It was the development of cave structure was done during the Satavahana time period. The five caves were developed in this time period: cave number 9, cave number 10, cave number 12, cave number 13, and cave number 15A. Cave number 9 and 10 were Chaitya, and 12, 13, and 15 are vihars. Phase 2 was developed by King Harisen of Vakatak ruler of Vastagulma branch, and it was also known as Mahayan phase because cave was dedicated to Mahayan Buddhism. So apart from cave 9, 10, 12, 12, 13, and 15A, all other caves developed during the second phase under the patronage of King Harisen of Vakatak dynasty. In this cave, cave number 90, 19, 26, and 29 were Chaitya, and all other were Vihars. Painting, we find Jatak tails, flying Apsara, and dying princess in the Ajanta cave. In cave 1, we find Buddha previous life birth as king, not as animal or bird. That was majorly used in Jatak tales. And we also find Bodhisattva Padmapani and Vajrapani in cave 1. In the cave 2 is woman. In the cave 2, we found woman-oriented paintings. The main focus is on woman. We found image of goddess Hariti. Goddess Hariti was originally a demon, but later converted to god goddess by Buddha, and Buddha made her goddess of fertility. Cave 16 and 17 were gifted by Varhadeva. Varhadeva was minister of King Harisen. He donated for the development of Cave 16 and 17. Bak Cave. It was developed around 5th century to 6th century AD, and both Ajanta and Bak caves are considered to be built during the Gupta time period. Although Ajanta was developed by Varkatak ruler and Bak was developed by which ruler is not clear, but the time period was Gupta time period. Bak cave is 9 rock-cut Buddhist vihar, only 5 have survived, and it was on the southern slope of Vindhya range. Uh, on the bank of Bagini River in Dhar district, MP. The, the construction of Bag Cave is done under the guidance of Buddhist monk Dattaka. And we found materialistic painting in Bag Cave rather than spiritualistic painting. Cave 4 is known as Rang Mahal or places of colors because of uh, lot of color used there, and cave 2 is known as Pandava cave, and it was best preserved cave among the five survived cave. Tempera, the paintings were based on tempera. Tempera is a technique which is used for fast drying of watercolor. Basically, mixing the watercolor with some other liquid ig, like ig, like with with the liquid of egg. So it was technique to it was technique for fast drying of watercolor. So I covered the post Satvana lecture, and in this lecture, in next lecture, we will start uh, Gupta dynasty. So it is the end of lecture. Thank you.